Foster civic engagement in Nebraska. For example, AmeriCorps program, serving with the RISE program, helps students on probation for truancy gain skills to improve both their attendance and performance in school. Discover more about AmeriCorps programs making a difference in your community at serve.nebraska.gov. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Husker Hoops just wrapped up.
As Williams turns the corner, two more into the line. A chance for three, Bryce Williams.
Hustle down to the block, post up, and go to work now on 93.7 The Ticket.
And the offensive rebound, Berke Butunjel.
The post-game post-up is sponsored by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, and Lincoln Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits.
There's a CJ, same spot, same result. He is red hot. A CJ ahead, half court. Eulis good if it goes, and it counts. Aaron Eulis for the half court three.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
It's a final from PBA. Minnesota wins it 67-65. An interesting ball game at PBA. Not the outcome preferred, but this is if you ask me to identify this season as a personality, it is all of the runs, good and bad, by this Nebraska team. Players stepping up and falling down. And in a critical moment, Minnesota makes the play. They made the final play of the game. And that's just been this season. And it's tough. 402-464-5685. Start our text line. You want to be a part of what we're doing? Hit us up. Give me a go Big Red anyway. Eric Strickland, the Hall of Famer, will join us. He's on, and then Austin Orman will join us as well after the post game. Feel free to put your text on the text line and to comment on YouTube or otherwise. Strick, 67-65. Gophers pull out a win in a. This was a Big Ten late season basketball game of swings and otherwise, and it came down to a final play, and Minnesota made the play to win the game. Your thoughts on 67-65 Minnesota?
Well, initially, some of the things we've been talking about throughout the Big Ten conference season has been Nebraska's ability to make things tough, right? So it seems the energy level that they gave us first to start the second half was, they get out to a 9-0 lead on you, coming out of halftime, open up to almost a 20-point lead. And that's something you just can't have, like, especially after you struggled in the first half. It was difficult. Shots were difficult for Nebraska again. And that's what we've been consistently talking about. How can they get easier opportunities? One of the things about early that Minnesota took advantage of is definitely getting offensive rebounds. They were 9-0 in second chance points in the first half. So those were some things that got them going. Now the energy that Nebraska has to expend, that's happened to them on the road. They were able to pull out a win at Northwestern, but they struggled with some of the same things, as just the energy levels, as well as just putting themselves in a situation to where they have to fight extra instead of doing the work early. Their intensity seems to pick up, and that's something that, unfortunately, they came up a little bit short tonight. Grisby, who's of 20, just over 25% for the year, he comes in and gets hot and goes for 20 on you. So it's unfortunate. They missed a lot of opportunities tonight. They had some great layups. They got to the basket second half and missed some of them. So it's unfortunate. That's a bad loss for them. Now they're going to have to fight to stay out of the bottom half, and that's what you didn't want to do at home against the Minnesota team, is put yourself in position now to where another game or two can bounce you to the bottom of the conference. They may not catch the bottom two, but they're definitely in range of catching that last third spot. And so they, now they've got to fight.
Strick, the conversation can go in several directions, but I do want to paint a pen that there is still opportunity. Nebraska figures out a way to win the last two and then goes to the tournament and figures out a way to get a ball game. You're at least in the conversation of playing well and giving folks during that stretch a look, right? One at-home loss doesn't negate your big on-the-road wins, your play. But this is kind of the capsule of the season, is that there have been opportunities. This program is one of recent history of opportunity that just doesn't get met. And for you, having been a player that would have the ball in his hands late in ball games, how much pressure, how much more difficult is it to not have – you're playing 2-on-5 offensively, sometimes 3-on-5. Strick, there's got to be an easier way for them to get points throughout the season.
Yeah, that's been the thing that's been pretty much something that's hurt them throughout the season. Yes, Bryce shows up again on the second half. Didn't really have things going in the first half. A lot of stuff was like I said, it was just real difficult, and that's what's going to be their issue. So, good play out of Juwan Gary. He started to understand what he needed to do, and that's one, he had a disadvantage as far as, or he had an advantage as far as being able to take Rigsby off the dribble, bully him a little bit, get him in offensive rebound situations, and he did that, and he gave him a chance to win the game. In that last situation, that's Juwan kind of comes up in that situation. I don't think you leave Rigsby alone there. But you're right, man. And a lot of times, especially when Beruthen is not showing up for you, you're getting consistency out of Williams. You need Gary to show up. Asijan, moderately comes through today. And so I don't know, man. I don't know. It's they're going to have to battle. They're going to have to fight. And, do they have that in them? I think you could look at the second half and say, yeah, they do. But again, like you said earlier, DP, Minnesota made tough shots. I mean, they made tough, big game shots, where on the other half, Nebraska didn't. I think there's some things that they'll look at, DP, is, one, they'll look at, how they played in that first half, and then coming out. You never want to come out of the first half and lose the way that they did, because then it puts you in a fight of having to overly scrap. Minnesota did well as far as moving the ball. They had 14 assists on their shots tonight, shooting over 50%, and then, shooting almost 50% from three when they're not a very good three-point shooting team. And that seems to happen a lot with Nebraska. For some reason, guys that don't shoot the ball well all of a sudden goes nuts and has a great game. And that seems to be a consistent thing for Nebraska throughout the season.
Strick, some of the numbers as we go down from the field, Minnesota shot 51% from the field to Nebraska's 44%. And I think a lot of that, they were at 50% at the end of the first half. And I thought that number was going to come back to earth. It didn't. From the three-point land, they shot 48% from three. Like, they were 10 of 21 from three. And that's not their MO. I'm stunned at this. Nebraska was 4 of 16. Now, you're not going to win many Big Ten basketball games shooting 4 of 16. It just doesn't work. But on the other side, Strick, these other numbers are kind of eye-opening. Minnesota shot 5 free throws today. 5. They were 3 for 5. Nebraska shot 20. And usually when you're plus 15 at the free throw line, you do well. But they didn't convert those. They were 11 of 20. Mm-hmm. It's a thing. Like Nebraska was, listen, Minnesota had 14 turnovers to Nebraska's 6. Nebraska was competitive on the board. The effort numbers line up for Nebraska. The production numbers don't match up, and that's the toughest thing to coach. Think about it as Strick, as a player, when you're playing hard. And it's not the fake hustle. You're actually making hustle plays. You're on the floor, you're getting loose balls, but your shot's just not going down. as a player, how do you get through that? How is that fixable, or is that just the rules of the game?
Well, they did the things that they needed to do, as you alluded to, and that's when you're struggling, especially from the field, from three in those areas, you gotta get downhill and you gotta attack. But again, this is one of the things I've talked about for our bigs, Mia as well as Morgan. Those guys really have to concentrate on the finish, because, you know, knowing you're not a good free throw shooter, you should tighten up your creativity and your ability to finish at the rim, shielding guys off and being able to convert those buckets, because you don't want to lose an opportunity and that's missing those points wherever they come from. So they've got to do a better job initially of finishing those. And if you miss the free throw at that point, okay, you don't feel as bad. But they had a lot of situations, a lot of stretches where they went not only without buckets, but they missed some layups, or they missed some finish opportunities, or they got challenged at the basket and didn't finish it, or got fouled and didn't finish, and then they also missed the free throw, which caused them to have a little bit more trouble there. So that you're right, DP. Those are the things that they have to do in order to, when you're shooting bad, but they just, like you said, didn't convert them. And it's that's tough, because what you do is you put more pressure on yourself, DP. You now, we talked about this throughout the football season too. We talked about what we said, banking, putting those things in the bank. And this is one of those games that you needed to put in the bank. One for the eye, now you were the last of the 10 seeds, probably, I think. Now you've got a quad 3 loss. You also have USC playing, and they're playing against Oregon even right now. But if they continue to lose, and you've got a couple of teams that Rutgers and USC, if they continue to fall, now you're looking at multiple quad 3 losses, which is gonna go at home too, which is going to not fare well for you in the eyes of the committee.
Yeah, it's through all of this, Strick, that as you talk about attacking the basket on the offensive side, I look at it in this way, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but penetration without ability, want, and commitment to finish isn't the same as doing the job in full. The easy thing, penetration is easy, but can you put the ball on the glass? Can you attack the rim? Isn't that a choice? Isn't that one more dribble? The commitment to one more dribble to put a body inside the hole, instead of, you know what, I need to get close and throw a running one-hander up there, or I'm going to pump fake and hope for contact. Leaving the floor, jump stop, going up with two hands and powering through a finish seems to be a thing that would help this team.
Absolutely, DP. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Again, even some of the ones that they made were really difficult. And again, sometimes it's being off balance. Sometimes it's not, one of the things I prize myself on, DP, as a 6'3" physical guard, was I'm looking for the contact, but I'm looking for the contact not to draw the foul. I'm looking for the contact because I'm looking to go through it, and then my focus becomes on the backboard, the rim, creating enough space in order to get off a good shot. But ultimately, I'm looking to finish, because knowing I was a good free throw shooter too, that's extra money. But they struggle with that. That Nebraska, I got to be honest, Nebraska is one of yes, they did make some tonight, but they had so many more that they left on the table, and they've struggled in that area. I mean, there were times where they were shooting 50% on layups. So again, it's tough. And I know the fans that are watching, we see some of you guys on the stream. I know, thank you guys for chiming in as well. Shout out to Action Plumbing as well as Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits. We appreciate them for their support here for the post-game show. But it's a tough one again. It's a tough one for us to bite the bullet on and take to heart, because it's another tough loss at home, where Nebraska was so dominant at home, and they've lost a few of them against teams that probably shouldn't have come into the vault and got a win.
Yeah, it's in full disappointing. That the disappointing is the right word. Yeah, there are things, boxes to check and go, okay, listen, Andrew Morgan came on in the second half. He was doing all of the smart basketball things that were required. Ability to finish is still going to be a critical issue. They're going to have to find an answer. I don't want to write off the season or the good things that happened. This is a gritty team. This is not the most talented team in the Big Ten. If we said talent roster for roster, it's probably not in the top half of the Big Ten. So what Hoiberg's getting out of them is impressive, because to compete, this is not a terrible Minnesota team. Minnesota played well today with some resistance from Nebraska. It just didn't go down. And I don't want to get too frustrated in the result, other than the fact that the result matters. But Strick, I'll ask you, what's problem one that needs to be fixed in these final two regular season games for the Huskers?
I think problem one is just knowing you're not them. You're not the type of team, and really there's not many teams out there that's really that type of team. We've seen where about 8 or 9 teams that were ranked in the top 25, not even ranked now. So, it's not one of those things where a lot of teams just can show up and just dominate. There's not those teams out there that like used to be like UNLV, where Larry Johnson and Anthony Hunt and who else? Stacey Augman and all of those guys, man, just showed up and they were just gonna beast you and right. Dominate you. There's not many teams like that right now. So that's not the case. They're not those Duke teams of old, those old Leighton or Hurley type teams where they dominate you, or those old North Carolina teams where they just show up and, they're going to Vince Carter, Vinsanity you all night. That's not that anymore. So they have to show up with energy. It's got to be 40 minutes a game. Do they have the depth to do that, DP? That's the other part. That's the other part, because you got to play a certain way with some depth.
I'm going to say this, and I've said this, I've been consistent. And so for the folks on the text line and on the stream, we will spend all week talking about what it means for the future of the program, right? All of that. In focusing on what happened today and what it means immediately. Now, the season isn't in. All opportunity isn't out the window. Can this team put together 3 really good games back-to-back? Yes, we've seen that, especially when their back's against the wall. My question for you is urgency an issue? Because it seems to me like when this team has to play from behind, they play better. Urgency, having a plan to start this game up and how you're going to attack, and then putting other people on their backs for a little bit instead of you having to come from behind all the time.
That's what I'm saying. And again, it's the come behind. It's one, the energy. Teams are beating you 50-50 balls. I think another part of that, what I just discussed, DP, in the last question, is I think they have to run more for opportunity. Meaning they have to basically get teams where they're still disorganized, right? Be able to get into some form of a secondary offense that's quick, where you come down, you get into something real quick, you've got a mismatch, and get into that. And then you have to be able to use guys like get some in those quick drag early offense situations with a Wooster or a Ulis or somebody like that, because otherwise they're ineffective. You can't use them. So you got to figure out how to be able to get some opportunities throughout the game and make the thing easier. Because when a team settles in and they just play Nebraska hard, defense, stay in front. Nebraska, it's very tough because they don't have a lot of guys that can just make big shots at big times. Bryce can, but can you rely on that all the time? One guy, just, a team like Illinois was able to do it last year, but at the end of the day, Nebraska just doesn't have enough firepower to allow themselves to continue to get behind against teams and then think that they can get back into it. Minnesota is a hard, tough team. They play hard, but they're the team that'll let you back in the game. Hence why Nebraska got back into it, because they started turning them over and getting some of those turnovers and turning them into buckets. I think they got 16 in the second half.
Yeah.
So they had 19 total, which is huge. But at the end of the day, a lot of that came in the second half, and that's just because they were really being aggressive, and they weren't doing that earlier. If they would have done that earlier, I think they win this game in double digits.
Yeah, there is a positive point in that down 19, not quitting, grinding, finding a way to cut into the lead, being consistent enough to tie the game, getting a lead down the stretch, having an opportunity under 20 seconds to tie the game and get a lead. They did that. 9 seconds left. You have a 1-point lead, and then being able to finish is it is the toughest thing in all of sports. But it continues. Like this is a new team, but it is a veteran team. Couple of numbers for you, Strick. 5 points, 5 fast break points the entire game. 5. You cannot. They had 1 dunk attempt. Now Minnesota doesn't defend the rim like that.
Right.
You only have one dunk attempt, and to go 13 of 25 on layup attempts. 13 of we can talk about the 11 for 20 from free throws, and the 13 of 25 on layups. Both of those are energy and depth stats. Those are commitment stats, right? If tired legs don't make free throws, we know that. But 11 of 20, you left 9 points on the board, and then you could not punish Minnesota when you got a turnover. You saw the turnover numbers, but you couldn't punish them with layups by finishing. It's a thing that exists. 21 from Bryce Williams on 18 shots. He was 1 of 6 from 3. Juwan Gary was with 21 points as well. 8 of 14 from the field, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. He also had 5 boards, but this team cannot be led by 5 rebounds by a player. That's a stat that you have to circle and figure out. Connor Season with 11 points off the bench. He had 11 of their 16 points off the bench. Andrew Morgan had the other 5. The question becomes, what did you get out of the decision to start Braxton Mia? Like, what did you get out of it? Because that's really a thing. You cannot play Big Ten basketball 2-on-5. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And you can't change it now. So you got to figure out, listen, do I have guys on Strick, am I wrong in asking why Connor Essegian isn't in the starting lineup?
I mean, you're not wrong in asking. And again, there's parts of it that I understand because they're trying to get some form of life off the bench, but that's the only thing I can really see, because you're right. It's doesn't really, add up at this point. But then also there's some defensive liabilities. Maybe I have no clue, man, on that part, because you're right. It's tough with the different jumblings of the lineups and trying to figure out something that works and something that matches, because you do want to have somebody that comes off the bench and gives you something. I think one of the missing links is not having Burukdengel do anything at this point. You have to have one of your bigs to be able to do something. I think that's what made them so good in the past, is that what Rick Mass was for them, but they don't have anybody who can stretch the floor. And then if you can't finish at the rim, or you can't take advantage of mismatches or post-ups or anything like that, then, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because you're not having somebody with range like a Rink Mass to be able to hit some of those shots. None of those bigs have been able to show a consistency of being able to hit perimeter shots. And then Morgan takes the last three. Come on, my guy. Like that in itself, that was wild. That was wild to me.
Go get the ball. Go get the ball. Like that, learning how to finish games in every sport, in every single sport that exists. Learning how to finish is the most difficult thing to do. It's simple in that theory that, listen, your best players have to make play. Their hottest player got the ball in the biggest possession of the game and bumped a three. You got the ball. You had just under 5 seconds, and you have to make a decision. You have to have a plan. Minnesota got that shot off and didn't have a timeout. They didn't have a timeout to talk about it. They knew what they were going to do. Their best offensive player, not to be found. Second best offensive player could barely get up and down the floor. He was in that much pain. So if you can't identify the biggest threat on the floor in the most critical possession of the game, that's a thing that former player, former coach, that bothers me. Look, Hoiberg knows his people. His people know each other. But in that situation, one, your two best offensive players, three best offensive players have to have the ball in their hand. And if you get the ball in the hand, you have to have a plan for how you're going to get a shot off. Right? It's a 2-point game.
Well said. Yeah, well said.
You can go length to the floor in 5 seconds. You can go look
length to the floor in 3 seconds, DP. Real talk.
Strict, right?
Real talk.
Listen, man. You had to fight me strict. If you got that ball with 4.5 seconds, they would have to call National Guard to get that ball out of your hands. That's
a fact. To the free throw line and pull up. To the free throw line and mid-ranger. And that's what was frustrating. You've got a guy that hasn't made but maybe 1-2 threes all year with the ball at that depth. Steph Curry, type range. And still he took that with like almost 4 seconds or 3 seconds. It's like, wait a minute. So I'm to the rack, mid-ranger, or I'm to the free throw line, straight up.
Man, 67-65. Minnesota wins it. We'll throw the break. We'll come back. We'll get to your text. Stay active on the streams. We see you. We're going to get those out. Jackson is looking for Austin Norman. We'll get that done and set that up for you. It's a tough one in Lincoln, Nebraska.
There's no place like McKinney's Irish Pub for St. Patrick's Day, so mark your calendars to join in on the fun for their 11th annual Street Festival. The party starts on Saturday, March 15th, with tons of giveaways, a kilt contest, great Irish food, and green beer, and continues on Monday the 17th for actual St. Patrick's Day. Doors open for the bar at 11 a.m. on Saturday and 9 a.m. on Monday, and the street party starts at 2 p.m. both days. Don't miss out on great music and great fun with no cover charge for St. Patrick's Day weekend at McKinney's 8th and P in the Haymarket.
I'm softball player Jordy Ball, and I'm proud of my Nebraska roots, and I'm proud to be back home. And at Midwest Bank, they're proud to be your local community bank. They believe in family first, taking initiative, showing integrity, and rolling up their sleeves to support their local communities. They treat everyone like family, no matter where you're from. Whether you walk into a branch in York, Lincoln, Norfolk, or Pierce, you know you're going to be welcomed with a smile. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank.
Hey farmers, do you run a precision planting monitor in your planter tractor? Boyd Farm Outfitters is hosting our annual 2020 Monitor Clinic at the Holthus Center in York on Wednesday, March 19th. They'll run through everything on the monitor, from basic setup to more complex downforce settings and everything in between. You'll learn agronomy principles behind some of the monitor settings and will leave refreshed and ready to plant. Representatives from Precision Planting will be on hand to handle any questions that you can throw at them. Visit BoykFarmOutfitters.com for all the details and to reserve your spot.
Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
Hey Husker Nation, this is Todd Euler, two-time national champion, here to talk to you about Window World Lincoln. At Window World, we specialize in replacement windows, doors, siding, and roofing. Whether you're looking to enhance the beauty of your home or increase its energy efficiency, we've got you covered. And here's the best part. We offer the best for less. Our team is dedicated to providing top quality products and exceptional service at affordable prices. We want to earn your business and make your home improvement dreams a reality. So why wait? Contact Window World Lincoln today at 464-7313 or visit our website at WindowWorldLincoln.com. Window World Lincoln, where quality meets affordability.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
Rain, snow, or shine, John Henry's is here to keep your home's plumbing systems working properly no matter what kind of weather Nebraska throws at us. From unclogging toilets and drains to installing new water heaters and water treatment systems, John Henry's is your plumbing expert in the Lincoln and Omaha communities. Visit us at calljh.com or call
John Henry's.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air,
and Electrical.
Ticket listeners know a dream team when they see one. At Applied Connective, we've been in the game for 20 years and have developed a team of world-class leaders in all things IT. From cybersecurity and Microsoft products to physical security, audio-video, infrastructure, business phone systems, and anything in between. We'll help you leverage technology to become your most secure, efficient, and profitable. Head to our website to check out real reviews and testimonials and sign up for a free tech consultation. We can show you where you might be vulnerable, inefficient, or overspending. It's a game changer, and it's totally free. Claim yours right now at appliedconnective.com.
5 stayed in the hospital after 2 days of fractures.
Minnesota, the Gophers come into PBA and creep away with a 67-65 win. Several things to consider along the way. Eric Strickland, the Hall of Famer, holding it down. Austin Orman will join us after Coach Hoiberg and the Huskers get together and have their conversations. Dan from Canopy Street Market says, hey, flush it. Win the next one. Go Big Red. There's lots to say about this, Strick, and I think the expectation or the understanding that you're playing Big Ten basketball, meaningful Big Ten basketball, and Sam Hoiberg's playing substantial minutes. Like those are big numbers that we're talking about, and that his defensive efficiency, his analytics are off the chart. Offensively, the analytics for Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary, exactly what you would expect that they would be. Pretty efficient, plus minus, high plus for both of them today. On the other side, you got some folks putting Bear K had a tough day. He had a tough day. You got almost nothing from Raleigh Wooster. And that, to me, that at the point guard position, if we had said before the season started that Sam Hoiberg would be the most effective, reliable, dependable one guard, we'd have shaken our heads and said we're in for a bumpy ride. Is that not true to be said?
I mean, I hear what some of you guys are saying on the YouTube stream, and you know, I you look at it from the standpoint because you see Sam Hoiberg as the son of the coach, right? Yeah. But in all actuality, Sam Hoiberg is probably he's the one guy that I can say that you know is going to show up defensively, and I tell people all the time, and this is why it was my greatest gift, is if you can lock down and you can defend with a high clip, because he actually made some plays to where he caused guys to take tough shots and miss. The problem was they didn't secure the rebound. You see what I'm saying? But here's the other part. He's the only one that I see regularly that's able to penetrate and get far enough with the shoulder by a guy to be able to find somebody, as he did with Morgan a couple times and got in there. He's been the only one, because that's what you would hope Wooster would be able to do. He's doing it. That's what's crazy to me is he's the only one that's able to really beat guys, and he pushes tempo, and then he'll penetrate. But his issue is he doesn't finish because of his size. He can. I think he can, but he doesn't. But they need to get that more consistently all across the board, right? You talked about there's something that you spoke about a little bit earlier, and I want to add the word to it, and that's IQ. Court IQ in some instances have not been Nebraska's greatest suit. What I mean by that, I'm talking about the way that the big men roll sometimes. Like Morgan kind of figured it out, allow the guard to get deeper enough in penetration and late roll because you'll leave enough space to be found. Or getting into that dunker space and knowing how to move up the lane, under the lane, across the lane, away from what the penetrator is the way he's dribbling and where he's going to provide not only rebound opportunity, but also a opportunity to catch and drop it off. You saw Juwan Gary do that a few times, make these little late cuts into the paint, be able to find a space, and then, finish with a little floater or something off the backboard. That's something that I found is difficult with them in their free flow offense. Sometimes it's IQ stuff. It's understanding how guys are going to play you, how they're going to play off of you. Where can I get to in order to take advantage of what they're trying to do against me? In instance, just for an example, when I was in high school, especially late, there was times where they knew if they can figure out a way to stop me, that they would give themselves a chance to win a game. So sometimes they would put a box in one or, some forms of those crazy gimmicks to try to keep the ball. So I had to figure out, okay, you're going to play a zone on top of that. What areas on the court, IQ-wise, can I get to take advantage of this guy that's shading me, but also to put them at a disadvantage so I can either find my teammates for easier opportunities, right? That's just IQ stuff. It's the same thing that if I get a switch and I'm switching with somebody, and then boom, there's some form of a disadvantage, play's over. It's over. Who's got the mismatch, or who's on me with the mismatch? And then how are we going to attack it from there? So that's some things that I think they've struggled with that I don't think they did last year, DP. Last year, you had really high IQ basketball guys with Tamanaga. He was one of those guys that could figure out, okay, this is how they're going to guard me. Oh, they're going to guard me high. Okay, so then I'm going to fake high back doors. They're going to be there tonight, mid-range shots. And those are the things that I think they need to do better.
Strick, let's do a thing. Let's thank the sponsors who make this happen, and then let's have you bring in Austin Orman from PBA, if you would, please.
Shout out to Action Plumbing, Heating, and AC, as well as Electrical, for their sponsorship of the postgame show, along with Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits. Go out there and check them out. They are wonderful, wonderful companies in order to be connected to and affiliated with, because they'll get the job done and they'll provide the good spirits for you as well. Shout out to Austin Orman coming out of the presser there at PBA. What's the mood there at PBA right now? And is there shock? And what are the coaches saying?
Well, let's just say PBA cleared out quick. It cleared out very, very quickly. And the feeling from Fred Hoiberg, he said he's sick for his guys, sick to his stomach with the way that ended. I'm sure you guys talked about the first half and how Nebraska didn't look that great. But more than anything, Fred Hoiberg said, you know what, bad halves happen. I mean, Nebraska's been on kind of a streak of bad halves. There's really 5 in a row after the first 20 minutes here in Lincoln. Fred Hoiberg's biggest disappointment was that his team didn't come out and start the second half strong, right? Nebraska cuts it to single digits going into half with a layup from Sam Hoiberg, and then Minnesota rips off 9 straight points early in the second half to lead by as much as 19 in this one. And then, Strick, that's when Nebraska found a lineup that worked. It went to that lineup of Hoiberg, Esijan, Williams, Gary, and Andrew Morgan, and that group started leading the charge for the comeback. And outside of one or two possessions of offense-defense subs for the press that Nebraska tried to put on Minnesota, Nebraska rode that 5-man unit all the way to the finish. And Fred Hoiberg mentioned this. You've mentioned it time and time again. It's great that Nebraska made the comeback, but when you get down by that much, you have to expend so much energy just to get back even. So when that game was tied with about 2.5 minutes to go, you did start to wonder, what does Nebraska have left in the tank? It's been riding this lineup for at least 10 minutes of game time, if not, closer to 12 minutes of game time. Nebraska is not good enough to really just turn it on for 15 minutes. They've got to play a full 40 that they haven't done in a while. And I was talking about this with some people here too, Strick. Nebraska didn't figure out which postman had it going until far too late, right? Andrew Morgan struggled in the first half. He didn't get much at all from Braxton Mia. Berke Boyichenjel continues to be off as he makes his return from that sprained ankle. Nebraska essentially, Strick, went the first 25 minutes of the game not knowing who it could play in the post. Against a team that started 2 postmen, Nebraska went with its 2 big lineup. But Strick, I mentioned this to some people before the game. I've been saying it. I will continue to say it. Part of Nebraska's struggles on offense come because it plays 2 bigs together, 2 really non-shooting bigs. I know they think Berke Boyichenjel can shoot the ball. That's theory. That's not practice right now. The reason I think that Nebraska continues to start slowly is because they have 2 non-shooting bigs out there, and Boyichenjel's not making enough plays elsewhere to make up for it. I know I heard you guys talking about the point guards. Maybe one of them needs to be able to, turn the corner and get a bucket from time to time. That's there as well. But I do want to pick up on your IQ point, right? Because everyone's going to look at the botched switch from Nebraska or botched kind of late game execution where Rigsby gets so wide open. But you said this specifically, Strick, and I just want to emphasize, why is Andrew Morgan floating 35 feet from the basket in a 2-point game? You need 2 to tie. Big fella, run
to the middle of the paint.
Rim to the rim. You have one job. Why are you floating that far back? You're just going to be in the way. You don't have enough time to go set a screen that Juwan Gary doesn't use a whole lot of anyways. It's a whole lot of that basketball IQ stuff, and that's just a little stuff at the end of the game. What continues to frustrate Fred Hoiberg, Husker fans everywhere, feel the same, Strick, is how Nebraska's mental focus comes and goes. How Nebraska continues to believe it has an on and an off switch. They can flip and start playing better basketball. I'm sure Fred Hoiberg is at his wit's end. That's why he's sick to his stomach. He's sick for his guys. He won't say it, but Strick, I think he's also sick because of his guys. Because I think Fred Hoiberg is telling them the right things. I do think that Fred Hoiberg is trying stuff, but far too often, Strick, I don't think Nebraska's players are actually acting on what they're being coached to do, and it just leaves Fred Hoiberg grasping at straws or just kind of throwing his hands up like, what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, Austin. Again, we've talked about it on the block regularly about the importance of banking games like this, not only for the eye test of what the committee would be wanting to see out of the Huskers, but on top of that, now you put the pressure and the onus all on you, and what would be a travesty is for this team with that pressure to fall out of the Big Ten tournament due to the fact that you let a lot of these games, especially at home against the Rutgers, against
Michigan.
USC, right? Yeah, those and again, it's close games. That's the scary part. It's close games, and when you have so much difficulty, Austin, in the executions of your offense, when it comes down late, tell me honestly, from what you've seen over the last, 5 to 6 games, when it comes down late, can you really trust and believe that they're going to execute and make the right play based on what you've seen? Yeah.
No, you can't. And that goes, I think, a bunch of different places, Strick. I mean, I think some of it is – I don't even know where to start with this, right? I mean, Fred Hoiberg mentions the lack of weapons out there for an extended period of time. Nebraska's best offensive lineup. Let's just kind of think through this one here, Strick. I think hypothetically, Nebraska's best offensive lineup should probably have Raleigh Wooster setting the table, should have Bryce Williams at the 3, probably Connor Seagen at the 2, Jawan Gary at the 4, and either Andrew Morgan or Berke Buick-Angel at the 5. Well, that's not necessarily bearing out. So I think what Nebraska has to do is run Bryce at the 1, handling the ball at least, but still probably the 3 positionally. Sam Hoiberg's got to be in the game because he's at least spacing the floor somewhat credibly right now. You need the threat of a Seagen. You like Gary getting downhill. And then again, I think today it was Andrew Morgan. Berke Buick-Angel occasionally can get going offensively, but that's not exactly inspiring. That's not exactly fear-inducing, especially Strick, because we see this from Minnesota, just like we saw it from Michigan, like we've seen time and time again. As soon as Bryce Williams gets going, what do other teams do? Full deny. They will front Bryce Williams. They will face guard him. And with a team that had a playmaking big that could pass over the top and 3 other shooters, the floor might be spread enough for Bryce to cut out to the 3-point line, quick turn, have the ball right there in the bucket with a little numbers advantage. You don't need a pick and roll necessarily, but because the floor is so condensed, because other teams don't take Nebraska's wing shooters seriously, the paint is cramped. They're okay with a long closeout outside of pretty much anyone that's not Connor Seagen right now. So there's no real room for Nebraska to go to counters. I also think it's obvious at this point that Bryce Williams is much better going to his right, and yet Nebraska continues to try to get him going left, where he can spin one way or the other. It just hasn't worked. It's the same plan. I think it's pretty easily scoutable, and the personnel's not quite there.
Well, there it is. How is Minnesota?
I think we got to take a break. Jackson's telling me we got to take a break. So we should have one short segment left. We'll wrap up here on postgame in just a sec.
Salt Mine City is not only Lincoln's newest brewery, but they're also now serving food. Enjoy a full menu of great items daily for lunch and dinner, like their peanut butter and jelly burger with bacon and cheddar cheese, or a Reuben sandwich served on Blackstone rye bread. Don't forget their beef or chicken nachos with guacamole, sour cream, jalapenos, and more. Wash it down with one of their 12 beers on tap, including the popular Single Axle Light American Lager. Salt Mine City, now open 11 a.m. every day but Mondays at 8th and R.
Get rid of pesky critters once and for all with Bats to Rats. Their expert team is here to help you reclaim your home. No more sleepless nights caused by crawling critters or flapping wings. Bats to Rats ensures a safe environment for every family member. Check the website at batstorats.com for amazing offers. And if you mention this ad, you'll receive $10 off your initial inspection cost. Call Bats to Rats today at 402-781-8691. That's 402-781-8691. Bats to Rats.
Hey there, fellas. It's your girl Jordan with Sartor Heyman Jewelry. When it comes to gift giving, it's all about the wow factor. And let me tell you, nothing wows quite like jewelry. Whether it's a delicate necklace or a statement ring, jewelry makes the right statement. So if you want to knock her socks off, or anything else for that matter, skip the generic gifts and go straight for the bling. Until next time, this is Jordan at Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Happy shopping, guys.
There's no place like McKinney's Irish Pub for St. Patrick's Day, so mark your calendars to join in on the fun for their 11th annual Street Festival. The party starts on Saturday, March 15th, with tons of giveaways, a kilt contest, great Irish food, and green beer, and continues on Monday the 17th for actual St. Patrick's Day. Doors open for the bar at 11 a.m. on Saturday and 9 a.m. on Monday, and the street party starts at 2 p.m. both days. Don't miss out on great music and great fun with no cover charge for St. Patrick's Day weekend at McKinney's 8th and P in the Haymarket.
The dangers of secondhand smoke are well known, but what about secondhand aerosol, which is created when using e-cigarettes? Science already shows a secondhand aerosol can contain nicotine, heavy metals, and cancer-causing agents. Eliminating exposure to secondhand aerosol is an important step to keeping everyone safe. Breathe easier knowing the facts.
For help quitting, call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. robotics club and space club and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? Nah, forget that. How about margarita clubs and old-fashioned clubs? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge for the best clubs in town. Try all 10 varieties of Upside margaritas or old fashions and take home a free souvenir glass. Grab the whole crew and pair it with taco night on Mondays or whiskey Wednesdays. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake.
Load up on meat and more this winter at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This week's special through March 4th is $1 off crisscross pretzels, buy one, get one free on hot dogs, and $2 off on Piedmontese brats. The Mercado has locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney in Lincoln, and at 168th and Maple Streets in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town. If you're in Seward or Milford, listen up. Select Plumbing is now servicing your area with no trip charges from Lincoln. Select Plumbing works on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. It's not just Lincoln, Waverly, and the surrounding area anymore. It's also Seward and Milford with no trip charges. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Welcome back to the post-game show, sponsored by Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits, as well as Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electric. Joining us there at PBA, we had a great insight there from what the coaches had to say from Austin Orman, and DP and I were able to touch and talk more in detail about some of the happenings throughout this game. Minnesota takes the win in PBA at the Vault, 67-65, as the Huskers come up short in their campaign to try to get back to the NCAA tournament again. Austin, any final thoughts for you, man?
Yeah, Strick, I think the thing that I want to jump off on is you talked with DP a little bit about banking wins that Nebraska really hasn't done so far this year. I mean, 17-12 right now is the record for the Huskers, who right now, Strick, have to view themselves in the same vein as a Minnesota, a Penn State, a Northwestern, a Washington. They have to have that hunger and that desperation to just make it to Indianapolis, right? I mean, Fred Hoiberg even noted that that's not a guarantee for his team right now at 7-11 in conference play. Obviously, that's not good enough. The way Nebraska, has lost these games has been honestly just uninspiring. I think that's another part, is that it's just kind of tough to watch Nebraska go through this. I was about to tweet something about how Nebraska didn't have any answers, and then they busted out the full court press, right, with Asijan and Hoiberg up top, Williams playing free safety. That sparks the run. But when you talk about banking wins, I am getting so many flashbacks, so many alarm bells to exactly what we were talking about with the Nebraska football team 2 seasons ago, and then just last season. I doubt I'm the first person to make that comparison. But Strick, we think about Nebraska, the last 2 seasons, sitting at 5-3, entering the month of November. Mm-hmm. 1 win away from trying to end the bowl drought. Could have snapped it 2 seasons ago, but the Huskers go 0 for November. Well, then Nebraska falls back even at 5-5 by losing its first 2 games in November during last season, before they got a home game against Wisconsin. Huskers, I don't even say take care of business, but they find a way to get out to a big lead, hold the lead, and they go bowling after that. Nebraska has had plenty of chances to bank wins. Obviously, Strick, the games that we talked about, but we can even look further back and say, what if Nebraska came out a little bit better against St. Mary's out in Sioux Falls? What if Nebraska goes 2-4 instead of 0-6 in that 2-game losing streak, where they're 9-9 in conference play right now? There were some tough games in that 6-game losing streak for Nebraska, some high quality opponents that looked good at the time and probably look a little bit better now. But to the point now, Strick, where it's the same, little issues, some of which you would hope could be fixed in season, some of which can't be fixed in season, that are continuing to bite Nebraska. I mean, in a 2-point game, you look at Braxton Mia starting the game off 1 of 6 at the free throw line. That's not good enough for a guy that we thought had turned the corner. Williams and Gary combined to go 9 of 11 at the free throw line, but even Andrew Morgan just 1 of 3, right? You would think that no matter how much you struggle at the free throw line, you would get better at that throughout the year. The other disappointing part, Strick, is that even if Nebraska is not going to put the ball in the basket, the offensive process didn't look a whole lot better tonight. The first half was 1 pass, 1 action, settle for a jump shot. 1 pass, 1 action, settle for a drive against a set defense. And it's stuff like this that ultimately it reflects on coaching, right? At the end of the day, it all goes back to the head coach and his staff. They have to find the right buttons to press, the right time to press them. But I don't know how much of this I can even pin on Fred Hoiberg, right? Some of it, but not all of it, because I want to believe that Fred Hoiberg is telling his group the right things. I want to believe he's having the right conversations. I mean, he seems like a good basketball mind. He draws up some good stuff. It's just not translating. A big part of coaching is roster building. You can't fix that in season. It's just not how it works. There's no waiver wire. There's no trade deadline in college basketball. And certainly roster construction, falls on a coach, and Nebraska needs to be better at that whenever the offseason comes. But Bryce Williams at the podium too was saying, at some point something's got to change. It's hard to point out what's changed for Nebraska. It sounds from all the press conferences we've heard that Fred Hoiberg, is saying the right things. He told us today too that, it's not for a lack of messaging. They're telling these guys how important these games are. They're telling them they have to come out and play with that energy, that intensity, that urgency from the get-go. But at some point, Strick, it's got to be on the players. An upperclassman-led group that's played a lot of college basketball to continue to have issues, getting ready for games, getting up for games. I don't care who you're playing. It's a bad look for a team of upperclassmen to continue to have the same questions be asked about them, especially in terms of effort, intensity, and urgency. Sure, the older you get, maybe the more set in your ways you are to some degree. But I was hoping that with this veteran team, when the struggles came, Nebraska would be old enough, wise enough, savvy enough to see what the issues are, be able to say, hey, this isn't working. Here's the next thing for us to try. But instead, pretty much up and down the roster, at least to the naked eye, at least on the surface, it's hard to tell what's changed for Nebraska. It's hard to tell consistently which guys are taking that leadership approach. I mean, Fred Hoiberg even said, too, the most disappointing part for him as a coach is seeing the body language, right? Again, out of upperclassmen. If you're a petulant freshman coming in, things aren't going your way, it's still not excusable to drop your head, but it's more understandable. But these are guys who have played 3, 4, 5 years of college basketball. When something doesn't go their way, they don't get a call, they miss a shot, whatever it is, the body language suffers. Are you kidding me? You can only harp on it so much as a coach too, because at some point that's a personal choice. What are you going to do? Are you going to bench Juwan Gary for, Jeff Grace, your culture guy? And Fred credited Juwan Gary, so maybe that's the wrong example, right? Are you going to bench your leading scorer, Bryce Williams, when he drops his head and give Cale Jacobson a shot to score the ball? No, it's a tricky balance for Nebraska, who's so reliant on a few guys that you have to give yourself the best chance to win. And it would be, malpractice to take some of those guys out for moments. But maybe that's the next step for Nebraska. These next 2 games is they have to go all in on body language. They've tried to go all in on energy and intensity, but nothing has worked at this point. I mean, we've seen some changes attempt to be made. Others I'd like to see haven't been made, but that's ultimately not up to me. At the end of the day, Strick, I put this more on Nebraska's players than I do the coaching staff.
Well, here's what you have. You have 7 teams that are literally vying for that last possession. One team that's one half a game ahead of you in Ohio State. You're going to have to go on the road and face them. And guess what? They understand the same thing, Austin, before we get out of here. They understand the same thing, that a team's coming in, they're right there on you, and you don't want to be that team that falls down to those last slots. So they understand they're going to come with high energy, high intensity, and they're going to be looking to blow you out of the building. So you take that loss, and then guess what? You're going to have an Iowa team that's fighting for their ever-living life as well. There's 8 teams with Iowa is right now sitting at that last spot. But guess what happens? They beat you. They one-up you. And Minnesota's going to have the head against you. So you've got 2 teams right now, all of them outside of Northwestern. And for Northwestern, all they got to do is win, no matter what. And they're okay. The rest of them have the advantage over you because they beat you on those matchups.
You don't necessarily control your own destiny.
You don't.
You're still in position, but Ohio State really feels like a loser leaves town sort of game. The Buckeyes were a good matchup for Nebraska here in Lincoln. Nebraska found a way to come back with a second half turnaround and end up winning that game. I think they were down 5 or 6 at half against Ohio State. But you're going to their place. They're hungry. They're desperate. And then Iowa, Strick, as poorly as Iowa is playing right now, injury here, injury there, shots not falling at the same rate, that is still a team that is relishing the opportunity to come into your house a week from tomorrow and kick you out of the Big Ten tournament, especially with the way things looked in Iowa City. It's still not a great matchup for Nebraska, the way Iowa has the ability to spread the floor and shoot the ball. At this point, the words NCAA tournament or bubble should not enter Nebraska fans' minds. They shouldn't enter Nebraska's players' minds. We got to get back to seeing the effort from Nebraska that every game is a Super Bowl. It seems like the teams that were below Nebraska in the Big Ten Conference and now are even with Nebraska in the Big Ten Conference figured that out, and Nebraska hasn't yet. If this isn't a wake-up call for Nebraska, number one, it might already be too late, but if they don't get it figured out, regardless of the result on Tuesday against Ohio State, like Bryce Williams ended his press conference with, it's good night, Irene. Anything else from you, Stricky? Are we coming back on Monday with it?
Hey, we're going to come back on Monday and kind of dig a little bit deeper into this topic, no doubt.
We'll do that on Monday during On the Block, probably right at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. There is still lots to get to from this game, this team, 2 massive games remaining for the Huskers. Huge shout out to Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits, as well as Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical for their sponsorship here of our post-game coverage. Thanks to DP for sitting in. Easter, good to hear from you, my friend. I'll see you down at the studio on Monday. For DP, for Strick, I'm Austin. Thanks to Jackson for running the board. Don't go anywhere. You got more programming coming your way here on 93.7 The Ticket momentarily.